Put something more interesting on the screen for the viewers at home. Slightly more interesting anyway. Back in a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Back. Okay, I understood. That middle screen.
Yeah, that's true.
I see.
I did not go to the I got up to the room, I'm laying there, I'm tired.
Oh, really?
Coming
Oh,
as much as
very
I
funny. Nobody was.
was getting cranky, I'm like, I'm just gonna go to sleep now. I looked on television, or had a television on, I sat and watched doing the hat. Fall asleep. Alright, I'll turn everything off and go to sleep. Nope, turn it off, I'm sitting there at 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to find a comfortable position, half cold. AC was running, and the top half was cold, so my feet were sweating because I'm underneath everything.
And I was just watching the time to get box.
Exactly, and I'm sitting there,
Explain and he's
I'm like, I wonder what time we got back. I was getting ready to message you.
yeah.
Want to go get a drink or something?
I was gonna message you, and I was not the first one, but you
Both was like, both dates, school
It was so bad. And then you called me this morning, and that day, Thursday, you called me, I thought,
course alarm. But it's wrong.
Alfred, you want to sit back with us?
And
Yeah, I'm not, I still have to go to the other room.
say, we'll allow free access to the.
Everything good?
Yeah.
All set?
Connecting to the Wi-Fi or,
It is Callie, and then Callie on 13.
I'm all set. Cool. I've got my hat, and then we're going to get off momentarily. Cool.
Should you take a picture of it and have a picture or put it on your blog or something? Yay!
Drink my water before I put on the microphone, that was the Marco Rubio full round mistake.
Yes.
Everyone will see you go.
It's just because that's why I wanted to.
Yes.
No problem, no, please.
Okay, that's
You can see it later.
Maybe I'll come in at the last, I catch the beginning of it, but I'll come in and sneak in.
As long as you don't start a trend.
No, yeah.
Come to watch.
Okay, I'll be back.
All right.
Blow up. Yes, I can tell.
Okay, it says 9:01 here, actually, so let me begin. First, I have to put on my presenter hat. For those who don't know, Callie has provided presenters with presenter hats with the nice flaming, I guess, trucker, sort of trucker logo on top. And welcome to my presentation. Thank you for not attending the symposium or the other presentations. And if you are attending the symposium and other presentations and are watching this right now, turn off your laptop or other YouTube device and start watching what you're actually attending. And hello to the viewers at home. My name is Scott Frey. I'm a librarian at Western State College of Law, and I am going to be presenting today a session on my library's webpage, the improvements that I have implemented on it, and hopefully some inspiration and ideas and techniques for how you can improve your web pages as well. I'm not a particularly gifted web developer, web designer. I'm just like anyone. I picked up some HTML. I did take a course in library school. I read about half a book on JavaScript. I had done a good book. The author's name was Alexi White, if you're interested, and I believe it's called Professional JavaScript. No, it's called JavaScript Programmer's Reference. It might be a few years out of date by now, but it only won't capture some of the latest features of JavaScript. It should have most of what you need there. I worked on a project funded by a Walter Kluwer Law and Business grant a few years ago that used JavaScript heavily and also some HTML, of course, to put up a web page prior to my library's web page. But mostly I've just picked up what I know from trial and error, reading, just constantly reading blogs about CSS, about JavaScript. I mean, there are blogs that are specifically devoted to those topics. and sites devoted specifically to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'll show you some of those today. Let me give you an outline of the presentation, and these are all links from the Cali agenda page about the session. I will be showing and commenting on a Prezi presentation. Let me just set that up for later. Prezi is an alternative to PowerPoint. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of an interesting alternative. It allows you to swoop from one slide to another. I won't do it that quickly when I actually go through it. Just don't want to ruin the surprise of that second page. And the presentation, the Prezi presentation, is supplemented by a list of links, which is on the website of our law library, which incidentally is westl.iii, or triple I, that's Innovative Interfaces, westl.iii.com. If you want to go there on your laptop or other device, feel free. It might be useful to explore it while I'm presenting about it. Let's see what happens if. Oh, all right. This is what the presentation will not sound like. I hope. A little Chicago reference here. Sure. Anybody remember Ferris Bueller? Bueller. Okay. You can watch that more at your leisure. I presented on this topic previously at Internet Librarian 2012, and there are some links there as well, though most of those links are essentially subsumed or repeated in my current presentation. And just to liven things up, because it's early in the morning, I have a page of My Little Pony. This is for if you haven't read the preview for my and Monsters Inc. apparently. If you didn't read the preview for my presentation, I am showing this gratuitous page because my daughter is going to be watching this video later, and she's 5, and she loves My Little Pony. So, and I admit that I kind of like My Little Pony too. I'm a brony in internet speak. And the video of the session, let's see if this creates some weird feedback. It should be live here now. Very meta. Okay. And just to liven things up because it's early in the morning. It's a tape delay. We're on tape delay. Interesting. Okay. That probably prevented people like me from messing around with YouTube and trying to break the internet. So, okay. So let's begin. Feel free to interrupt at any time with questions or comments. The point of this is not for me to stand up here and talk about my website. It's for you to learn and also educate me a bit. Because as I said, I'm not a particularly special, gifted, expert web designer. I am somebody who's picked up a few tricks along the way. And hopefully they're helpful to you and you can apply it on your own websites. Oh, can everybody hear me well? I want to make sure I'm projecting to the back.
Also, just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
There's
Okay.
a little noise from the outside here.
Oh, I see, okay. I guess I could take off my preparation. I'm not used to wearing that. I'd wear a Blackhawks hat today if I could, if I had one. But I lived in Chicago for 5 years, incidentally, so this is a bit of a homecoming for me. I also live in Cambridge, our fair city, as they say on Car Talk. So I have divided loyalties in the Stanley Cup. But since I'm in Chicago, I'll say go Hawks. Okay. So a disclaimer: by viewing this presentation, you have hereby consented for information about you to be transmitted to the NSA and various others. and I say this somewhat facetiously, but this is potentially an issue for web designers of the future. If you're collecting information from people, if you are getting a lot of foreign visitors, a lot of people from outside the United States are concerned what are American websites doing with my information. Americans now have this experience going to, well, and actually anyone has this experience going to websites in Europe. There are little disclaimers saying that this site places cookies on your computer. Please note that this is happening, and you have to close that little disclaimer on top of your website, and that will impact on or that could impact on your design choices and your substantive choices with your website. It hasn't interfered with us yet, but maybe if we are more interactive in the future, we'll end up needing to provide disclaimers of some sort. Every linked list tells a story, don't it? Roy Tennant published an article earlier this year. Roy Tennant is a well-known columnist on issues of libraries and technology. And his article was called "Why You Should Not Learn HTML." This was directed at librarians. Why you should not learn HTML. He says, while he published a book on HTML back in the 90s, by this point, he has given up in trying to convince librarians that they need to learn HTML. He thinks that they are not, in general, going to do it. He's happy if they do, but he figures they're not going to, and they can just design websites that look better than anything that they could do on their own using tools easily available on the internet. This resulted in a little conversation of sorts. So why you should not learn HTML? Really? I shouldn't be learning HTML? Why you should learn HTML was another article. And then finally, perhaps best of all, don't tell me what to learn. There's no requirement, I suppose, you can get from all this that you learn HTML or CSS or JavaScript to be a successful librarian, but you do want to always be improving your skills, and certainly one valuable skill both in libraries and in online in general is knowing these technologies. I think librarians should be interested, as at least one of these articles mentioned, in learning how web pages are structured, even if you're not going to design your own web page, and hopefully you will. Hopefully you're already doing that. Incidentally, how many people have actually designed a web page in the audience? Oh, very good. I'm preaching to the choir. And improving your knowledge is, for a librarian, that should always be a good thing. I think it's inherently good. But there are admittedly professional tools out there. There have been for almost as long as the web has existed for developing your web page, or even now for developing your responsive website that will nicely shrink for smaller devices, or expand and possibly present more content on larger devices. Though if you saw the initial keynote, I've forgotten the name of the speaker, I apologize. Global Moxie, I know his handle on Twitter. He noted that there's really only one web, and you should be designing a site that works well no matter what device, what size screen is viewing it. Even if, in our case, it's just a desktop website that you're viewing on on the mobile screen, it still looks pretty good. And if you try looking at it on a phone, it still doesn't look pretty good. Though I hope to make it more responsive as a future step on our website. 2 Voltaire quotes, and if you saw Sarah Glassmeyer's presentation yesterday as part of the free law discussion, she referred to one of these. The best is the enemy of the good, or I think I she quoted it, which is another way you might see it. The perfect is the enemy of the good. And if this is the best of all possible worlds, what are the others? We don't really have time in many cases as librarians to learn everything about any topic, really. You all know, I'm sure, we have budget pressures, we have time pressures, and I'm talking about librarians. This applies to IT specialists, to professors, to anyone who is in the law school or technology environments. Maybe just everybody in modern society in the United States and probably also elsewhere. We have too much to do. There's too much to sit down, too much going on to sit down and spend, unless you happen to be a webmaster and that's all that you are devoted to doing, or a web developer. You can't necessarily spend time taking even a Code Academy course. Those are fairly, my understanding, fairly stress-free and not too time-consuming, at least if you don't want them to be. To take, but you don't necessarily have the time to read through an entire book about JavaScript. You pick up what you can along the way, and you don't necessarily have to write the best code in the world, the one that all the experts say that you should write. I made an error as of my previous presentation. I had what I consider to be an error on my website of using JavaScript served from another site, and I thought that was what experts thought was optimal. And somebody pointed out, no, you should just host it on your own website. It'll load faster. You're not subject to anybody deleting it from the web, and then suddenly your website breaks because you no longer have JavaScript on it. And the commenter was right. Again, I can learn from you as much as you can learn from me. So here are 2 articles from developers regarding the issue of whether you should fret about what code you write. And while it's pitched at a level beyond what a typical librarian might be doing with their code, I think it's useful to read it just sort of as a valuable lesson. I agree with the just code rather than the concept of being too scared to write a line of code. So on our webpage, I've tried to do at least 5 things that I think are fairly interesting or fairly useful to know about. Center the content, or at least move it off the left side. Toggle between a catalog search box and a site search box. Display titles and links for your library's latest blog posts. Create link boxes that change color, and make rounded corners for those boxes. Okay. We're going to get past all the text-heavy stuff and get to the actual website shortly. If I were to do this again, I would have pictures of kittens and probably ponies and other things rather than all this text. So apologies for that. Perhaps you know enough HTML to create a web page, and you know these other technologies. But suppose you're not an expert, and as I said, you can't spare the time and the money for training. You could do what any librarian might do, and I'm curious from the people who are not librarians in the audience, what you do to learn about web coding. And feel free to interrupt at any time with your observations about anything in this presentation or in your process of developing. But I, as a librarian, do research, have patience, and just lather, rinse, repeat. Continue with the research and patience until you have your answer. It seems that this is even what experts do. They go on to, or people who are trying to become experts, certainly, they go on to one of the Stack Exchange websites, they go on to a Google forum, they go on to, they just search around the net and see if anybody has had a problem like theirs before. And if they can't find anybody who's had that problem, they could submit a question to the appropriate forum, or email a developer who's worked on something similar, or just find the information by the normal reference librarian techniques that librarians are familiar with, and just through the information gathering techniques that citizens of the web are hopefully familiar with at this point. The website. And let me pull up the live version of the website while we're in it. And make it a little bigger. So, and feel free to look on the monitor rather than kind of watch that screen here. So, apologies to the people at home. You can follow along pretty well by looking at the links that are available on our website and that are linked in turn from the Cali webpage about this presentation. It's not exactly right in the center, but it is off the left side of the page where it was initially. This is a table. I know I shouldn't, according to good web design, I shouldn't be using tables at this point. Tables are very 1990s way of organizing content and of putting content on the page, and you should be able to do this all with CSS. But I learned how to do it with tables, and it works for me. It looks nice on the page, I think, and hopefully you agree. But how do I move this table or whatever div tags you may have put this inside of, or whatever tags you put all this content inside of, off the left side? And there are various ways of doing it. You can use the CSS property let's say I blanked out. You can move it to the right. Let me actually pull up an example. Whoops. If you're not, let me skip a few. Sorry for the dizzying effect of skipping. Oops. A little bigger. Doesn't have a. This actually doesn't have an example of that. I apologize. I do have one here. Well, you can use left or right to move. Here it is. Right in this fragment here. Make that a little bigger. See, I've moved. I've put an inline style inside this form. tag. And I've set position relative to the box that's containing the form. And then I have moved it, off the left by 485 pixels. Or you can move it off the right by a certain number of pixels, or by a certain percentage, or by some other measurement. That's one way of doing it. Let's move back. You just hear the excitement in the room. Everybody's still just waking up, right? Or am I that boring? I'm not a particularly gifted speaker. I'll admit that to the world, to the world watching on YouTube. But really, all I want is for something to be of interest to you, for you to contact me later. I'm very interesting by email. And if you talk to me in person, just public speaking is not my favorite thing in the world, and it's not something that I have. It's going to be one of those lifelong challenges to get it just right. And there are so many interesting things that I want to show you that hopefully you'll just dazzle by the end. But let me note why this website isn't perfectly centered, which it you would think it should be, because I've used these style properties here. Margin, 0 pixels auto. Sometimes you'll see that written as margin 0 auto. That means that's shorthand for the top and the bottom margins of the box. The big containing box that's surrounding this table are 0 pixels. The margins to the left and right are automatically determined. They're going to be equal. There'll be one on the left and an equal size margin on the right, and that should center your box on the web page. If you wanted to center it top to bottom, you would just get rid of the 0 pixels and make all of the margins auto. Though I think this is a more common pattern that you'll see. It's not perfectly centered because, in fact, the content goes to about here. This is something that Innovative The Innovative code, which I didn't want to play with too much, makes this really large box around the search box. And I could shrink it, but I don't necessarily care if this page is perfectly centered anyway. Just as long as as the logo isn't sitting right on pixel 1 of the left side, then I'm happy. It's sort of just rakishly over to the right, but not completely over. So, and you know, the people are going to probably be more interested in the content, or notice the content better the further over to the left it is anyway. So it being a little over to the left is fine. I don't think people want to have to strain their eyes or move their mobile browsers over to the right to see all the content, or over too far to the right anyway. Go back a few slides here. So I've centered it in this screenshot. It's really not exactly centered on the web page, but it's close enough. There's also a search box. This is the catalog search box. You can type in a keyword or choose other criteria to search by, title often, or you can search our site with a Google custom search engine. And I don't know if I included a link to Google custom search engines, but they are the coolest thing in the world. You can create your own Google search engine on any sites you want. And I can toggle between the catalog search and the site search by clicking on the radio buttons. And I'll just demonstrate a site search. I'll search for law, which will pull up a lot of results in our law libraries catalog. And I will search for law on our website, which incidentally includes our blog, but I'm just going at a site search so as not to use too many words on our page, on our home page. And it comes up with Google results that you can click. And incidentally, if anybody's curious about how to get an innovative catalog indexed by Google, please feel free to talk to me after the presentation. I was able to arrange that with Innovative. And so this is our blog. Oops, and my link. And I can click out of that and back to our home page. So I think that's kind of neat. And we didn't have a site search previously, and we did get some feedback that these buttons, while pretty, aren't necessarily the best way to get directly to the content that the user is seeking. So the site search should help. Maybe we will redesign this with fewer boxes or some other navigational or browsing technique in the future. Okay, so I mentioned centering and toggling is accomplished by this code, which I'll focus in a little bit on. Let's see, that top part is a script, JavaScript script that prescribes a function called setVisibility, where it will change the visibility property, CSS property of the web page, and it will. It takes two. It takes two. See, I don't even know what the proper form of describe variables, I guess. It takes two variables, ID and visibility, or visit, as I've abbreviated it. And you can see below what those values might be. Let's see, there's a first text box, ID, which I have set to visible. And there's a second text box, which I have set to hidden. So by default, the first text box, which is the catalog search box, is visible, and the second text box is hidden. And the second text box is the Google site search. If I click the second radio button, which the first radio button is the catalog, the second radio button is for the site search, I change the visibility of the first text box to hidden. It has been by default visible. And the second text box, which had been hidden, becomes visible. And then there's a script below for regarding the second text box. Since or there's a div containing the script, and its ID is second text box, so it will apply the visibility settings to that second text box. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that? You can view the source code of our website, of course, just view the slide and play with it on your own. I don't think I got this from any particular source. I give credit where credit is due. I think that's good form. I link to sites where I found this. I did find a site that was somewhat that had this JavaScript part, but not exactly what I've implemented here. So I don't think I got this from any one source, though I do. And I probably should cite that source just for the JavaScript, I suppose, to give credit. But I mentioned it in the links, but that supplemented this presentation. To show the latest posts from our blog, and I'll show you what I mean. The latest posts from our blog are in this area on the right here. It's Western State World Library News, and our most recent post is more Lexis access for students and graduates. And click on it and go to our blog. And if I added a post to our blog, it would instantly show up on our website. And this is the code to which I do cite the source of. It's on a site called Beautiful Data. I use the JSON feed. Some people say JSON. I believe that Douglas Crockford, who invented the format JSON, calls it like the person's name, Jason. Though you can see some fun incremental debates about that if you'd like. The JSON feed, which is automatic, which is provided out of the box by Blogger, where our website is, our blog, excuse me, is hosted, can be basically crawled for things such as the title of the blog post, the date, the content, everything basically. The data and metadata of the blog post is available in the JSON feed. And basically, that top part is a script that crawls the feed. And it crawls for each of the 6 most recent posts. I have a counter here at the top for var I equals 0, I is less than 6, I plus plus, and that's just a very standard way of counting up to a certain point. And the blog posts are in the JSON feed 0 through 5, so it will loop around and get the data I need up to post 5 and then stop. And then it will write the data or metadata that I'm interested in this case, simply the title and the URL. And it puts the title as text, and it puts the URL as a link, which is styled as you see here. And then in the body of the web page, I just invoke the script. And you can see how I do it here. And there's a certain callback that triggers. The callback is called show recent posts. And the function up here is called show recent posts. And by putting in this callback, it invokes the function and automatically updates or gives you the 6 most recent blog posts. And you can read more about what the JSON for Blogger contains by going to this Beautiful Data website, which is cited on this snippet, and I also link to later in the presentation. Colorful link boxes. There are too many CSS properties to discuss in a short presentation here. I list various properties in this basic buttons styling. It's a dot buttons, and so it styles a link with a border radius, a display, a height, a width, a margin, and there's too much to talk about there really for now. But the color, I guess, is the most important thing for this presentation, and the color is changed by these other CSS declarations below. Button 4 starts as maroon, button 5 starts as dark goldenrod, and so forth. When it is being when it has been clicked, or when the link has been visited, the color changes. When you hover over it, and it says a button 1 colon hover, the color changes. A button 1 colon active, the color changes again. So you can be much more interesting looking at it on our website. See what I mean? So the color of the library catalog, I don't know if you can see that too well, changes. It lightens. And you click on it, and it changes back to its original color. And the color, the visited color is the same as the default color, because the web page will start looking increasingly splotchy as you visit more links if the link has actually changed color permanently. Like, you know, when you visit a text link, text-based link, it turns purple by default. I just didn't want it to stay purple, as it were. I wanted to go back to its original color. And then rounded corners. And this is from a script called Corners that I found after a lot of searching. There are many ways that developers over the years have dealt with the issue of how to round corners of boxes. You know, you look at Web 2.0 sites, and they're not just square boxes or square geometrical figures of any kind. They're typically rounded in some sort of pleasant way. And this script, which is available on GitHub, which is a repository for scripts, allows you to round the corner as much or as little as you want, and also to provide a special fix for Internet Explorer, which doesn't handle rounded corners in the same way. It's been a bit of a bugaboo for developers that Internet Explorer handles lots of things differently, including rounding the corners. The script was recently updated by another developer, and that's one of the great things about GitHub is that developers can contribute. One developer can contribute to another developer's work, can make a pull request to contribute new code to the project. There's a line at the bottom here, which again was set by Innovative, meta HTTP equiv. I don't think it's very recommended in the web design world, but again, I didn't want to play with Innovative's website too much. I just wanted to make it look different. If you look at the template out of the box, it looks very different from the web page I've designed. But the underlying, most of the underlying HTML is still there. And this prescribes mainly that the Internet Explorer version that this is targeted to is 8, so it's IE 8. IE 10 apparently doesn't work well with this script, but IE 8 does. So I didn't need to get the updated version of the script because I'm asking Internet Explorer to view this as Internet Explorer 8. Okay. That's it for all the messy code. Those who can't do or haven't done it yet can still teach. I have links to responsive web design in HTML5, which are the next, basically the next steps I'd like to take on our website is to make it responsive, and also to have some HTML5 features such as video, shorter links for mobile browsers. Mobile browser doesn't like a link that extends 100 characters, but it might be able to deal with a link that's 20 characters or 15 characters. And that's one of the many things you can do with HTML5 is have it, or responsive web design for that matter, is to set a different link for smaller screens. There are many exciting things you can do with HTML5. And there are always new developments in responsive web design. And you can see some of them, and I'll try to add to this as time goes along, at our library's webpage. The screen is calicon13.html, which I will go to in a moment after giving credit. Oops. Sorry about that. I want to give credit where credit is due to these, to our own website at Western State College of Law, and to 3 websites I used, web pages I used in developing some of these features. Now, hopefully, the most fun part. Links. I'll give you some of the best, the coolest links. A lot of these are just discussions of aspects of my presentation or aspects of CSS, HTML, JavaScript, HTML5, and so forth. Let me give you something that is fun and visual. So here's one of the many code editors or playgrounds out there called Pairs. And it's something you could just change the JavaScript to, let's say, I will change the line height to 3. And it instantly updates it. So the height of each line is much bigger than it was before. Or I can do 10. So again, you get instant response from the frame up at the top. I'll just put it back to the original 1.5. If you do something drastic to it, you can always just refresh the page and it will return to the default settings. I could, well, let me try another one. I'll change the color of another page. Let's see. Actually, I'll change the size of this one. So I changed it from, I think it was 1,800 and something pixels to 1,000 pixels. If I wanted to have it fit on a really small screen, let's do 300. So you can sort of test out with a website like this what happens, what a page or this particular page might look like if you play around with some of the settings. You can see the code and let's see, I think we can change all the colors. Let's change it to, I don't know what this will do, but let's see. Does it let me do it? This one doesn't let me do that, I'm sorry. You got one if you can. Live leave is another one. So this is for testing your code to see if it looks something like what you expect it to look like. I'll change the color here to, it's pure black. So they changed the hexadecimal to AAA. Now I changed it to old nines and it turns to a different color. And you can make it full screen, split screen. You can add CSS, you can add a script, you can do whatever you want. So there are a lot of these code playgrounds or editors out there. You can find them with my links and have some fun. Let's see. You can, let's just do this one. Browser stack. Let's see if I'm still signed in here. I'm going to sign in. You can sign up for Browser Stack. You can sign up for, I think it's 6 months, or it might be 3 months of free service via another link that I provide called Modern IE. Internet Explorer is trying to help developers after years of being slammed by developers for incompatible browsers. There's a great cartoon about this, incidentally. They have Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer being cheered on by some cheering sections. What are all of you? And Firefox and Chrome say browsers. Says, and how do you like to show the internet? Fast, say Chrome and Firefox. And Internet Explorer finally says browsers. It finally caught up at the end there. But that is a link the next time I do this presentation. So here is, you can test any URL you want. You can test your own, you can test an internal one that you just have not on the web, or I'll do a public one. And it is testing it, I think it's probably going according to my last settings. It's testing it in Internet Explorer 9 on Windows 7 with a screen resolution of 1024 by 768. So, except for this weird box at the left, which I wasn't expecting. I'll have to check that out. Maybe that's just this might be something that goes away if I refresh that. It shows that the site loads nicely in Internet Explorer. You can try Safari, you can try Firefox, you can try Chrome, whatever you'd like. Oh, I see. It's just putting it probably in a frame on this in the middle here. I don't know why it's doing that, but anyway. Let's see. So it gives you various Firefox versions, Safari versions, Chrome, Opera. If people are still using Opera, I'll try the latest beta version of Chrome on Windows 7. You can try it on Windows 8, on Mac, I believe. Yeah, it gives you 3 OS X, OS 10 versions, Android, iOS. this takes too long, I'll just move on to another tool. Any questions about anything? I want this to be more interactive. To look on that next time. Is it interesting? Is it useful? I hope. We only have a few minutes left, so if you do have any questions, speak now or forever hold. No, you can feel free to ask later on. I wouldn't be asking questions at this time of morning. It's still too early. Okay, this is taking forever, so you get the idea. Let me show you something. I anticipated the possibility that the Saturday morning fair might not be too interactive, so I'm going to give you something that's too cool not to respond to. Just to give you a sense of the amazing things you can do with JavaScript, or for that matter, CSS, or just even plain HTML in some cases, you can look at this website called Texelate. You can play with words, and what do librarians and other people associated with law schools like more than playing with words? So you can make the letters fold down off the screen, bounce. Let's see. We'll let them fold down first. Let's see if they bounce out now. Yep. So they're bouncing off. So if you want to just surprise your viewers with something playful and unexpected, you can do all of these different effects. Let's see. Here's let me refresh it and do. Let's see. Oh, it's still fading in off the left. You can play with this at your leisure. It's a lot of fun. You can get the JavaScript and load it onto your own web page. It depends on jQuery, as does the rounded corners plugin, incidentally, for my website, and a few other libraries. It's pretty cool. And it links to a couple of other libraries that do similar things. So let's see. One more link? Or do you prefer My Little Pony? Don't care. I'll give you something which I am fond of called Yahoo Pipes. Let me just tell you about it. Yahoo Pipes allows you to just basically remix the web in whatever you want. You can take a feed, you can take a web page, and sort it, put it on a map, do lots of cool stuff. And hopefully Marissa Meyer's reorganization and purchasing spree for Yahoo does not leave pipes in the dust, but it's been around for several years, I put it here because you can use it to transform JSON feeds, such as from my blog, into a widget, into basically whatever you want. I don't use it on our website, but I think Washburn uses it to put information on a map. At least they did. So you could try looking over their library, or you can find out how. You just search for Yahoo Pipes online and see how other people have been using it. Just wanted to make a plug for that. Let's see. One more. Just for playing around with border radiuses. If you wanted to see how round your box will be, let's make it really dramatic. 50 pixels of rounding. versus 10, which is much more subtle. 100, if you want to really, or I'm sorry, that's 1,000, that's too much. If you want a really rounded rectangular box. So lots of tools, lots of places to learn about code. I link to and use frequently W3 schools, but there are other ways of browsing for answers or learning. Mozilla Developer Network is a bit more official, I suppose. There's also a web platform site that's probably even more official than this. But it's sort of the go-to site, for, especially for something like JavaScript references, exactly what does JavaScript do. Sites such as Perks Mode or Can I Use to see, can I use this cool feature that I've just learned about on my website and be confident that it will work on any web page. Let's say audio. Let's say you want HTML audio, HTML5 audio. It shows you which sites it's fully supported on or partially supported on. It looks like HTML5 is supported on most everything, which is nice. So I think we've hit 10 o'clock. But thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of the day.